All right, hello, this is your host. This is the Black Gray Alien. I sent a request to do a video real quick on transgenders or gender dysmorphia. So there's been a long debate about, gay people and transsexuals and queers and whatever you want to call them. And basically, people are always wondering, are these people born this way? Do they have no choice? Are they biologically wired to be this way, or is it a choice and there are no biological factors that exist? So it's probably a debate that will probably go on for some time. I have my own theories about it. Of course, I'm the gray alien hybrid, so of course, I always think the gray aliens have something to do with it. And I've always wondered, are the aliens that made us gray? I'm sorry, the aliens that made us gay. Because we do know in the Bible that Elohim, which is basically, from our perspective, would be an extraterrestrial, is both male and female. The word Elohim means male and female being. And if that's one of the deities that created mankind, that means that God is an androgynous being. He's both male and female. And so that's how he's able to create a male and then pull a female from a male. So this guy right here, I'm not really sure who it is. I just found the picture and just popped it up there. But he would be a prime example of like what Elohim would look like if you ever saw Elohim. He would look male and female. And so this is the androgynous being. He's got a strong masculine jawline here, masculine nose, masculine forehead, strong chin. And even here, I don't know if you can see it pretty good, but you can see where he would have facial hair all the way up into here. And so he actually has what they would classify in terms of looks as a medium hyper masculine face. But then when you look at other things like the lipstick, like the eyeliner, like the cheek shadow, and he put a little bit of rosy stuff up here. And then the clothing is feminine. So and the hairstyle is kind of feminine too. Looks maybe kind of like maybe an aggressive butch lesbian sort of type, but a little bit softer. And so he's clearly half male, half female, or at least he's trying to appear that way. But we all know that he's 100% male, at least according to his chromosomes, because this man is not able to alter his chromosomes. Some people call these people transsexuals. They call them tranny for short, which may be a derogatory term. Another term that's interesting too is that they're called drag queen. And so if you look at the word drag queen, drag is actually short for dragon, like this dragon right here. And we all know that the dragon in the Bible was Satan. So the word drag queen literally means dragon queen. So here you have the dragon, and then here you have the queen. And of course, you have the pole, and then he's coiling the pole. And so that can be symbolic of DNA and the mixing of serpent DNA with human, or just the androgynous being in general. So yeah, drag queen literally means dragon queen, because Satan, according to biblical people, is the one that's responsible for gender dysmorphia, or the altering and the changing of the genders, against the will of God, who had created Adam and Eve, if you believe in that kind of stuff. So if we take a look over here, like we look at the term homophobia. The term homophobia was actually invented by a guy by the name of George Weinberg. And interesting enough, look what he is. He's a psychologist. And so this was in the 1960s. And so, of course, homo is like, human being or sexual, and then uh, phobia just means fear from Greek phobos. And so Weinberg is credited as the first person to use that term in a speech. Of course, he used it because he's the one that invented it. And the word was kind of invented as a sort of a counterattack in which the word was used to refer to homosexual man's fear that other people might think that they're gay. And so that's a classic argument that the gays use too, is that they call you homophobic, and you're really attacking homosexuals because you might have some latent homosexuality within yourself. Now, I actually don't believe that. That's actually a good defense, but who knows? It might have exposed some latent fears that some men have. But I know some men are just they're hell bent on rejecting like homosexuality for whatever reason, whether they think it's wrong against nature or wrong against God or wrong morally or ethically. They're just against it, and they have the right to be. And then some people are going to be for it. Some people are going to say that they're born this way and they don't have a choice, um, and that's all right too. Um, that's why I said it's always going to be a never-ending debate. I have my own theories about it, but then again, they're just theories. We don't have solid, concrete evidence either way. I do know that like I've actually been studying like homosexuality for definitely over a decade, and what I found in my research is that I feel that some of them are indeed born that way, whether it's from chemical intervention, maybe a pituitary gland that is pumping too hard in a man and he's becoming feminine, or pumping too hard in a female and they're picking up like masculine traits. But I just kind of look at some gay people sometimes, and I look at their facial structure, the thinness of their body. They also seem to have a heightened intelligence. I'm talking about really high level intelligence, definitely higher than heterosexual people for sure. Um, and that has to be biological. It just can't be. It can't be because I mean, intelligence is learned, but they seem to all have a pattern of like really high intelligence. The gay people, and so I don't know. Maybe when that pituitary is pumping, maybe it gives them increased intelligence along with an attraction to the same sex. So I can't jump up and be quick to persecute them. And so I've classified that as one type, the type that are indeed born that way because of some type of biological, factoring that's going on. The second type I've come across is obviously is the one that people don't want to talk about. Is say if someone was molested at a young age, or even at an older age, or if someone was maybe sexually assaulted in prison. Sometimes that can turn people gay. I think that's kind of the second type. And then a third type I've kind of categorized is kind of the type that maybe just does it to be cool, and maybe are curious. Maybe you're a college student and you're young, you're a girl, and you have your roommate in your dorm, and you just bored out of your mind, and you just want to know what it's like to kiss another girl, and you kiss another girl, and you squeeze each other's boobs, and that's it. You never really take it to that far, but you satisfy and gratify some small little curiosity. It doesn't necessarily make you a lesbian, but it just satisfies a curiosity. And so that's kind of my third type. They're not necessarily gay or lesbian, but they're definitely, they call it like bi-curious. And they exist. Are they evil? No, I wouldn't say that they're evil. People kind of think of it as an act of evil because they believe that there's a certain set of natural laws that exist in nature, and that's male, female. And then anything that deviates beyond this centralized male and female thing is some sort of act of aberrant evil that's outside of nature. But the thing is, if you look at nature has things in it that are both positive and negative, constructive and destructive. Now, it's not to say that something that is negative and destructive is good, but things that are negative and destructive or anti-nature do exist in nature. And so it's not something that exists outside of nature, because if it existed outside of nature, it wouldn't even be in nature. So it's in nature because it's a part of nature. And if you look at the even just the structure of all human beings, um, a man really has all the parts of a female. The shaft of the penis is really the shaft of the vagina. The man's testicles are really the woman's ovaries. The head of the penis is really the female clitoris. Like, the female clitoris is really a tiny penis. And then men have a chest, but they're really boobs. They just don't lactate milk. And it's the same with the female. She has all the parts of a man. And so if you look at the word male, male literally means ma, like mother. You call your mother ma, hey ma. And then you have El, which is the androgynous god from the Bible, Elohim. So male literally means mother El. And mother El is the enforcer of Ma, of the mom. Just like if you mess with someone's mom, Ma El will come to get you. That's her son. He has the strength of a he's like a male female. He has the strength of, he's a male. He's a mother L with the strength of a man. I don't know if that makes any sense. Let me try that one more time. He's a mother L, which is a male with the strength of a man, and he's the enforcer of Ma. Meaning, if you mess with Ma L's mom, which is female L, Ma L will kick your butt, because Ma L is designed by nature to compete physically with other Ma Ls. And so the word female literally means female, and fe is short for feminine. It's feminine mother L. And so, like, if you look at the females are designed biologically to compete with other females. That's why if Ma L gets angry at female L, which is feminine mother L, he'll go and get another feminine mother L to take care of the feminine mother L that's giving him problems. Because typically a feminine mother L is no match for Ma L. So Ma L is the enforcer of feminine Ma L. And so really, human beings that are complaining about homosexuality have to take a look at the fact that men have feminine parts and females have masculine parts. That being said, if we look at the pituitary gland, or whatever whatever part of the or whatever organ of the body which is inside the brain that's responsible for pumping hormones into the brain, whether it's environment or whether you believe it's right or wrong or whatever, some people could have like we know an overactive pituitary gland can cause someone to grow to incredible heights and never stop growing. It's also believed that the pituitary gland, or what's called the androgens, can also pump and make a man feel like he's a woman trapped inside of a man's body, and he can actually be sexually aroused at the sight of another man. And so a man that doesn't really have that pituitary gland can become kind of angry because they believe that that man is deceiving him. Just like if this man is dressed up as a woman, some people might say he's trying to deceive you because we know that he's still chromosomally a man. But in reality, he could have an overactive pituitary gland and feel like he's this woman, but locked inside of a man's body. And so it becomes really tricky because without really being able to genetically test people, it's hard to know if someone is actually sincerely has a overactive pituitary or overactive androgen, or if they're just faking. Like, we know some people fake homosexuality and they're not really gay, but that they are fighters for civil rights. And they'll attach themselves to a civil rights movement just to increase human rights overall. So really, gay rights is really a struggle for human rights, which is a struggle for civil rights for all humans overall. And there are people that actually aren't gay that pretend to be gay that join these movements to push civil rights, which is ultimately more human rights for all individuals. Um, Also, sexual freedom to also love who you want to love. But of course, it's within the confines of what the government allows love to be legal, which the legal age of love, at least here in the United States, is 18, which the law calls legal age of consent. Now, you can't really dictate, you know, what age someone is able to psychologically consent, because that's like saying that all human beings' intelligence levels are the same, and it's simply not true. Um, an 18-year-old can be, slow and really have the brain of like a 14-year-old, and not be able to consent at 18. I know that there's some adults that suffer from mild to severe retardation, and they're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, but have the brain of like a 12 and 13-year-old, and they require supervision. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people that are like 13, 14. I know lately, I think it was from some part of Asia, they just had a kid who basically turned himself into a chess grandmaster, and that was I think that was around the age 11 or 12. And so, how can we say that this guy can be a chess grandmaster and have all these complex moves and mathematics and philosophy concerning chess, but he wouldn't be able to understand human sexual relationships? That's just simply not true. The amount of time and energy that he put into chess, he could easily put that into human sexual relationships. Now, I know that's taboo and people don't like that, but intelligence is intelligence, and anything can be learned. And so age doesn't always equal maturity, because you can be 35 years, you can be 55 years old and be a crackhead and still dress like a teenager and be immature. Some people don't want to grow up. So, 18 is really designed to kind of keep people from taking advantage of other people, particularly like someone that might be younger and more mentally vulnerable. But I don't think it just should be a flat rule like that. I mean, the rule should really be that, you know, if they want to make a rule like that, it really should be that the more intellectually advanced shouldn't take advantage of the less intellectually advanced, regardless of age and regardless of circumstance. But also the opposite should also hold true too, is that you'd really have to alter consent, because consent would really be based on like intelligence, and you'd have to maybe do some kind of intelligence test to determine that. But like I said, it's a tricky, complex thing. I think it can be solved, but people have to look at it through more angles than just what a small group of people want you to see it as. So yeah, those are my three theories concerning homosexuality. Some people ask, is it evil? Is it from Satan? I know in some churches they have what's called, gay deliverance, where they'll take these gay people and they'll try and exorcise what they call a gay demon out of people. But it doesn't work, because right after the deliverance, the person is still gay. And I think the thing is, like, I look at being gay as like being bit by like a vampire. Once you get bit by homosexuality, I don't think there's no turning back. I don't care how much therapy you give a person. I don't care how much deliverance or exorcism you give a person. I don't think you can turn a person that decided to be gay and then engaged in homosexual activity. I don't think you could 100% turn that person back not gay. I think once you've been bit, it's a wrap. You're gonna have those thoughts pretty much for life. They might not be severe. You might even be able to control them all the way up until 99%. But those thoughts are never gonna leave you. They're always gonna be there. It would just be a matter of how strongly you felt like you needed to really manifest that. You know what I mean? But trying to deliver someone from homosexuality is a complete waste of time. I've looked at people after their deliverances, and they're no different. They might have changed a little bit to appease the person that's doing the deliverance, for just because that person's their friend or for the sake of the church or whatever. or just to support the deliverance, theory, because it's really a theory. You really can't deliver someone. They'll do it for that reason, but they're still gay. You can't get rid of it. Same with the lesbians. You can never get that out of people. They're always going to have those thoughts. They're always going to have those attractions. They can suppress it, but it's always going to be there. It's like once you get big, it's a wrap. So here's another example of what they call trainee. This is a black trainee, American trainee, black from the black land, which they call Africa. One of the things I noticed that was always kind of strange is that when black males, when they try and be transsexual, I look at the hair, and I don't know why they don't wear their natural hair. It's like they're trying to look like a white woman. Like if you see the hands and the nails, they're not trying to look like a black woman. They're trying to look like a Caucasian woman. And I've never understood that. If you're gay, why not be yourself? And another thing too, I always notice too is that like people really imitate their surroundings. Environment does play a huge factor in human behavior for sure. So here's a picture of Baphomet. And so Baphomet is basically, don't get angry, but it's the God of the Bible. It's the androgynous being. He's both male, like you can see the muscles here, and he's got shoulder muscles. He's been working out. And he's obviously got boobs, and then he has a phallus here, and then he has the two serpents representing feminine energy again. And then, of course, he has his hands in the classic, as above, so below. He's putting up the two fingers, kind of like Jesus Christ does. And then he's the goat. He's Capricornus. He's the god of lust. He's Saturn. And then he has the wings, and the circle in the back is actually letting you know that Baphomet is in fact a plagiarized Egyptian deity. And then if you look at these two Grecian Roman pillars, this is actually a symbol that comes off the $1 bill, this little circle here. I think all they did was just take whatever symbolism was on the dollar bill, and they plucked it out and then put Baphomet in the center. But Baphomet is basically a deity that was taken out of ancient Egypt, because we have the wings here, and the circle disc always lets you know that its origins go back to ancient Egypt. And then he has the star, which is reflective of the star behind his head, which is the sun disk of the Egyptian god Ra. And so some people call this goat, they call it the goat of Mendes. But really I think it's Montour, one of these Egyptian goat deities. And then of course he has the light on top of his head because Baphomet is associated with Lucifer. Now, though this image might look evil to you when it's black, it's actually a symbol of enlightenment to those who are illuminated with wisdom, because light in esoteric circles means good. It basically means you're smart. Just like when you're smart, they say you're enlightened, or when you're bright, they say you're smart. You're like a light. Just like when you're in your house and it's dark and you turn your light on, it's illuminated and you can see things around you. And that's what this light means. It actually means something positive. And so the goat and the wings and the reference to Satan and the snakes and stuff like that, and the hoof feet, that's all designed to scare you. And in reality, once you're scared and you think this is a satanic image, you are then drawn from the light of intellect and wisdom into basically this blackness of darkness and ignorance, where you think everything's evil. But in reality, if you read your Bible, Baphomet is the god of the Bible, because Elohim is both male with the strong arms, and he's female. This is literally the god of the Bible. For people who don't know, now you know. So let's continue with this little journey. This is an article called Wired This Way, Sexual Orientation and Gender in the Brain. I read a really interesting book called Abraham Lincoln's DNA, and it kind of talks about a gay gene, and if there is a such thing as a gay gene. Or can a gay gene be passed on? Let me tell you, this is pretty fascinating. I was talking to a black lady one day, and she had absolutely, she claimed she wasn't gay herself, but she had absolutely no problem with homosexuality. And I think that's because she was kind of bisexual herself. Now, she said her daughter was full blown lesbian. And I think, and this is one of my theories, might be theory number 4 or 5, but she may have passed down a gay gene to her daughter. But, it could be like a bisexual gene, to where she would still want to, she still has that urge as a woman to want to reproduce and have children, but because she was passed down this gay gene from her mother, she still has an attraction to women too. And there's a lot of people out there that are like that, because I'm always looking at these lesbians sometimes, and I'm like, how did you guys end up with kids? And they're like, well, we're lesbians. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously you had some sort of an attraction to a man in order to produce kids. Unless it was, I'm not talking about the cases where it's planned. I'm talking about the cases where you run into someone and they're a lesbian and they just magically have kids. And I think that's just because they're Baphomet. They're attracted to both. You know, um, that's what bisexuality is. Bisexuality means, bi means two, and then sexual means sexual. And the two is obviously on the male. They're attracted to both. So it says, born this way, choose this way. It's both. Like I said, according to my theory, I think some are born that way, and I think some choose it. Let's see what the Bible says about eunuchs. I think it says even kind of I don't know if you guys believe it, but I'm not saying that the Bible is a credible source, but I'm just saying it does say in Matthew 19:12, it says, for there are eunuchs who are born that way, and there are eunuchs who have been made that way by others. Like I said, that's molestation, raped in prison, things like that. And it says those, and there's those who live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom. And the one who can accept this should accept it. Now, I don't believe that was actually originally written in the Bible. I think somebody came and put that in there to advocate or justify or rationalize homosexuality. So in the King James, it says, for there are some that are eunuchs, which are so born from their mother's womb. I agree with that. And there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs by men, molestation, rape in prison, stuff like that. I agree with that. And there may be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. I agree with that too. And that's why I was trying to tell you my third theory about those people that choose to be gay or whatever, or eunuch. So yeah, that's kind of the Bible's take on it. So in this article, it says that sexual orientation and gender identity are influenced by developmental differences in our brain. It says it's not 100% clear in which way the connection goes. This is according to neuroscience. I'm just trying to browse through this real quick because I don't want to bore you. So it says what happens in the womb, uh, just goes on. It says apparently how much testosterone we get exposed to in the womb determines how long our fingers are, and things like that. Now this little hand thing is called some kind of finger to digit ratio, and it says so that our second to fourth digit ratio is different between men and women. Straight men generally have a shorter index finger as compared to the ringer finger, whereas they seem to be equally long in straight women. Now, I've actually never looked at a gay dude's fingers to figure out this finger index thing that they're talking about. It says different studies have investigated that it seems like lesbians tend to have a more masculine length pattern, shorter finger index, whereas gay men tend to have either hypermasculinized or feminized ratios, much longer ring finger or equally long fingers. These findings are taken to reinforce the idea that an atypical testosterone exposure before birth have a say in determining your sexual orientation But of course, this is a theory; it's not set in stone. And so I don't know if people are going to start running around looking, checking out people's fingers to see if someone's lying about being gay or not. But I'm gonna look at people's fingers though. You better believe that, because I want to do some research on that. Says genitals and brain do not become sex specific at the same time. Anatomical differentiation happens in the first 3 months of pregnancy, while the brain follows a bit later. So we have differences in the brain. Uh, it says the hypothalamus is a region responsible for, among other things, reproductive behavior and sexual response. Just like they'll do these experiments where they'll show a whole bunch of like gay videos, and then they'll hook dudes up to these like electrodes to see if they get like aroused or not. I think they do that for females too. First off, a region called INH3 was found to be almost double as large for heterosexual men as compared to their gay counterpart. That's kind of interesting. What is INH3? We're going to look that up because we aren't lazy. INH3. Okay, so it's short for third interstitial nucleus of the anterior hypothalamus, and is the sexually dimorphic nucleus of humans. What does that mean? I guess it's just the gene that's responsible for determining sexual dimorphic chemicals, I suppose, in the human brain. You'd have to look into it and do your own research. Let's see. Of course, the amygdala has a part of it. That's one of our emotion centers of the brain. This is just a few brain scans. It says differences were also found to be bigger in that picture. It was shown that the size of the brain hemispheres of gay men resemble this of heterosexual women. So that's kind of interesting. They say the gay brain resembles a woman's brain. I think there's some possible truth to that. The sad thing though is too is that for all the Africans that are killing all these gay people, you know, I think sometimes homosexuality is promoted a lot by the West, and some people might be changed that way. But could you imagine if there was a gay gene discovered and these people really couldn't help it, and that these people were being slaughtered? I think that would actually be horrible. Because if someone is born gay and they can't control it, and then they're being slaughtered and tortured, that's just like totally not cool. That's like being born with some sort of a deformity, and like say if you had hunchback uh, deformity and you're being like killed for it, and you didn't choose to be like a hunchback, humpback, then you're being like that wouldn't be right at all. So that's why nowadays I kind of tread carefully because you know until I know for certain, what really causes homosexuality, I can't really, I can't jump on them. I know that the West does play off homosexuality, kind of promoting it and kind of forcing it on people and things like that. That aspect is wrong. It's the same with religion. If you're forcing your religion on people, I think that aspect of it is wrong. That's really that's the only aspect of it that I don't like is the forcing of something on someone. I just believe that if you put it out there and someone wants it, they'll get it. But I think just trying to force people and saying, that's not that's not right and that's not cool either. It says brains of gender people also show certain differences. Scientists found a central subdivision of the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis, if you want to sound smartass, or BST. So this is actually what that BST is. It's this bed stria terminalis, which is this thing right here. The activity of the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis correlates with anxiety in response to threat monitoring, which to me sounds like the hypothalamus or the reptilian brain, whichever one's responsible for that. But I'm just going off on a tangent. Uh, this is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. That's kind of what was sort of talking about. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but I think, like I said, I think the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, uh, which is a gland, which it does produce something, I think maybe possibly responsible for pumping a chemical into the brain that's causing someone to feel uh, maybe an attraction to the same sex or feel like they are the same sex. It says here the central subdivision of the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis is sexually dimorphic. Sexually dimorphic is the condition where the two sexes of the same species exhibit different characteristics beyond the differences in their sexual organs. The condition occurs in many animals and some plants. Differences may include secondary sex characteristics, size, color, markings, etc., etc. So on average, the VSTC is twice as large in men as it is in women. It contains twice the number of somatostatin neurons. A somatostatin, also known as growth hormone inhibiting hormone, or by other several names, is a peptide hormone that regulates the endocrine system and affects neurotransmission and cell proliferation via interaction with the G protein coupled somatostatin receptors. Yeah, it's a tough word. I like to see you say that 10 times. So it says a sample of 6 post-mortem. Post-mortem means they're dead. Long-term HRT treated trans women, male to female, were found to have a female typical number of cells in the BSTC, whereas a trans male, this is male to female, right? This is a trans woman, I meant to say. And this is a trans man, which is female to male, was found to have a male typical number. Okay, you got to be more specific about what a male typical number is. It says also examined subjects with hormone-related disorders and found no pattern between those disorders and the BSTC, while the single untreated male to female transsexual had a female typical number of cells. And so I've always theorized that too, is that could possibly, like say if you're a male, you could have a buildup of female cells and just you're not able to control it. But on the other end though, and this is the part that, the gay people aren't going to like, is that, if you're a dude, you're biologically really wired to be with a female. Now you can sidestep that and be with a dude, but really you're wired to be with like a female. Same with the female. You're biologically wired to be with like a male. Now you can sidestep that and be with a female, but like I said, at the end of the day, you have to know that your biological makeup, just like you can't insert your vagina into a vagina. You know what I mean? A penis is built for inserting into the vagina. And so that's just what it is. So this says they concluded that the BSTC provides evidence for a neurological basis of gender identity and proposed that such was determined before birth. In essence, according to this bed nucleus of the stria terminalis, they're saying that, in fact, these people are born that way. And not only that, that it's born before birth. And so some people are saying that they're, the endocrine gland is being affected by, chemicals and plastics that are in the environment that are turning people gay. But there were gay people in Greece before plastics. And so, there's also what's those people call hermaphrodites. The word hermaphrodite is a combination of the Greek god Hermes and the goddess Aphrodite gives you the word hermaphrodite. And even in ancient Greece, like I said, people could have, humans haven't really changed much in the last 40,000 years. And a person could have overactive pituitary or endocrine gland or androgen gland, even further back than Greece. Now here's another one that's taboo, but I'm going to go into it. It says reduction of the size of the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis has been observed in pedophilic males, in addition to reduction in the right amygdala, hypothalamus, and abnormalities in related structures. That's looking at childhood defects. And it says a medial amygdala or a media amygdala may cause inhibition of sexual maturity. That's interesting. And so it says because of this BNST, it can cause an immaturity in a male, which could lead to him being pedophilic. Now, are they saying that pedophilics are also born that way? And look at what pedophilia is classified as. It says it's classified as a psychiatric disorder in which an adult or older adolescent experiences a primary or exclusive sexual attraction to prepubescent children. Now look at what it did. It actually changed pedophilia from meaning man on boy love to being an attraction to girls. But pedophilia is really both, and pedophilia is really Greek, and it really meant man boy love. And then later, when that term went over to the West, it changed and it became female instead. And I think the reasons for why they would do that is because they were basically trying to attack foreign traditional marriage, where young girls as young as 13 and 14, especially in places like, amongst Native people, the Middle East and Africa, and even parts of Europe, were allowed to marry girls that were 12, 13. Not to be evil, but because a lot of these ancient cultures believed that when a female started to menstruate, that she was sexually mature and thus able to be married and have kids. And so in those days, being a woman was defined by whether you menstruated or not. And being a man or not was identified as whether you could ejaculate or not. And if you couldn't ejaculate, you were a child. But as soon as you were able to ejaculate, those ancient cultures said you were a man. So basically, pedophilia just means child philia. Well, I'm sorry, Greek pious or paidos, meaning child, and philia, meaning friendly love or friendship. So somewhere along the line, pedophilia became a negative term, because obviously friendly love or friendship is not evil. So anyone that actually liked or loved or had a friendly love or friendship with a child would be classified as a pedophile. And so pedophile ended up switching to being something negative. Like I said, I think that's when the West took over the Greek term and decided to attack indigenous traditional marriage. And then they made up a new term called hebephilia, which is a strong, persistent sexual attraction interest by adults in children, which are typically ages 11 to 14. And it says it differs from pedophilia and ephebophilia, or what does that say? Ephebophilia. And it says, while individuals with a sexual preference for adult may have some sexual interest in prepubescent individuals. So that's funny. They're coming up with all these terms. I think they're coming up with these terms because, like I said, if they can wire a gene back to homosexuality being, a gene or some type of out of control gland, then later they're going to say, well, we need to release all these pedophiles because they might have an overactive adrenal gland too that they can't control, and they're born like that. And so you're going to see that more and more. That's definitely going to be the next step. Moving right along out of this stuff, I went off on a tangent. Okay, so yeah. So it says the main subset of androgens known as the adrenal androgens is composed of about 19 carbon steroids synthesized in the zona reticularis, the innermost layer of the adrenal cortex. Adrenal androgens function as weak steroids, though some are precursors, and the subset includes dehydroepiandrosterone, or DHE, sulfate, and androstenedione. This is getting tough. I really need to go back and work on these words because normally I'm pretty good at pronouncing stuff, and I'm getting beat up over here. So this testosterone thing is produced. I'm not going to say testosterone thing. This androstenedione is an andronic steroid produced in the testes, adrenal cortex, as well as in the ovaries. So this chemical is produced in both males and females, it's saying. And it can be metabolically converted over to testosterone and other androgens. And it's a structure of the estrone, kind of like estrogen. And bodybuilding supplements add this to that. So it's a real chemical and it really works. To some degree. And so, yeah, I've always believed that chemicals are factors involved. So I think the real struggle is going to be we're going to have chemists work on this, is really to differentiate between those who have a naturally occurring chemical that's causing homosexuality and those who are being altered by chemicals in the environment, which are causing homosexuality. And let's take one last look before we end this. Chemicals. Yeah, and see right here, it says homosexuality may be caused by chemical modifications to DNA. So it says, this is a study by the American Society of Human Genetics in Baltimore. And some work from Ellen Villian's lab at the University of California. And they said they're hot on the trail of gay genes. And so, okay. Let's see here. Okay, so that one or more genes for homosexuality had to reside on the XQ28, a large region on the X chromosome. That's very interesting. So this might be a precursor or a marker for perhaps a gay gene. But the thing is the gay gene naturally occurring in nature as a defect, or maybe it could be an evolutionary adaptation? Because, like I said, gay people also are very highly intelligent, and I think people don't really talk about that too much. But being gay is definitely hand in hand associated with high intelligence. There's no doubt about it. I spoke to them. Some gay people are like so intelligent when they start talking, I don't even know what the heck they're talking about. I'd have to like record it and like play it back and like analyze it. So it's talking here about, but I want to get to the part where it's, I want to get into the possible chemical altering of the brain and chemicals, which might cause homosexuality. So vegan activists say chemical pollutants cause homosexuality, and it says it's confusing people. Now, this is interesting that the vegan people will come out and say that. 'Cause I thought the vegan people would be like aligned with the homosexual people. Harvey Milk style. Okay, let's see. Trying to just see if I can get some good. I might have just passed something up. Or this could have been what they call like a clickbait. Yeah, I think I trapped myself in like some sort of a clickbait. A maternal immune responsitivity to the Y-linked gene. Okay. So they're saying a vegan group is saying chemical pollutants, and I've always theorized that too, that maybe chemical pollutants could be causing it, but I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know how much uh, chemical. Um, I don't know how much dosage of a chemical you'd have to ingest before you start looking at dudes with like weird eyes, um, or you're a female and you took some synthetic chemical pollutants. You started looking at women kind of a little bit differently. I guess we'd have to go straight to the punch and find out chemicals that cause sexuality. Hmm. Now they're saying that there's chemicals in the water because we know that there's fluoride in the water. Maybe it's fluoride. Um, I don't know what this gay frog stuff is about. They're saying it's something was being pumped in the water, some type of pond or lake where frogs were, and then the frogs were turning gay, and that if people were actually, drinking the water, there could be a link between the water and homosexuality. Um, it's a possibility. I mean, like I said, there could probably be a lot of different ways to turn people gay. Influence from the media, pressure from the West, because the West is the only one that's actually pressuring people about homosexuality. Chemicals, uh, adrenal gland, uh, molestation. I mean, there could be a lot of different causes, but I think the thing is like there's going to have to be chemical analysis tests done to determine like which ones are actually true and sincere, and which ones are kind of just psychological. Because I think there's two types of homosexuality. There's one that's psychological, where it is a choice, and I think there's one that's biological, where there is no choice. But you can't lump them all into one category just because someone says that they're gay and say that it's all biological and nobody has a choice. That's just not going to fly. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Love you all. Thanks for listening. It's the Black Gray Alien. I'm gonna close out this session. I might do a round two with this homosexuality, but I learned a little bit. Hopefully y'all learned a little bit. And yeah, see.